Bearcat Blitz, picking things back up for our final week of shows during the month of May. I'm your host, Russ Heltman of Cincinnati Bearcats on SI. Check us out there, and joined by my co-host, Neil Meyer of the FrontOfficeNews.com, Rivals Cincinnati Bearcats coverage site, which pretty slow time in the Cincinnati Bearcats athletic window. We do have news from the Cincinnati baseball team. They are going dancing for the first time in the NCAA tournament since 2019, and it's been over 50 years since they have made the tournament as an at-large bid. We'll discuss that to start the show, and then we'll get into the latest happenings around players arriving to campus, namely Shauna Baev to Cincinnati, along with Jalen Haynes. They posted they are already in town, ready to get to work with Wes Miller and the rest of the Bearcats basketball coaching staff ahead of the 2025-26 season. And we'll get to our most important players in each phase of the game for the football team. Who do Neil Meyer and I think are the most important players, non-quarterback, in each phase of the game? Obviously, Brendan Sorsby is the most important player on the offense. The quarterback is always, unless you're, even at Army and the directional schools, you're still relying on quarterback heavily as a part of your offense and the main pillar of your offense. So we are getting rid of quarterback as the preface point for that final part of the show. Let's get to all that right now on Bearcat Blitz. Stay with us through these messages. Bearcat Blitz, Neil, you were there at the announcement for the Bearcats baseball team heading to the 2025 NCAA tournament.
Yeah, first of all, Russ, that was a huge day for Cincinnati. They received their first at-large bid to the NCAA tournament since 1974. First time they have heard their name called for a regional since 2019. That it was huge. And the reason that being said is in year two under Jordan Bischel, 32 and 24 gets the nod to the big dance. And I think that says a lot about what is being built in the foundation of the Bearcats baseball program in Clifton right now. And I think it is a huge testament to the job that Jordan Bischel and this staff have done over the last two seasons. And Russ, it was a great full circle moment. And you could kind of see some of those guys kind of take it all in, like a Loudon Brooks, who's a Cincinnati native, a guy like Carrington Cross, who his journey at Cincinnati has been like no other. I mean, he redshirted his freshman year. He got told he wasn't going to travel in 2022 in his redshirt freshman season, then forced the hands of then coach Scott Googans to be a now everyday third baseman, goes on to be the first three-time all-conference selection since Josh Harrison. I mean, what a fantastic career for a guy like KC, and it was only fitting that it ends the way it did with the announcement on Monday in Clifton, seeing Cincinnati's name come across the screen in the Knoxville Regional, where they will be playing alongside Tennessee and local Miami of Ohio and Wake Forest in the Knoxville Regional that kicks off on Friday. It was a great time to see. And Russ, following the program and doing the interviews, let's give a shout out where credit is due. You have to be impressed with the young men that Jordan Bischel has on this team. I was very impressed by guys like Carrington Cross, Loudon Brooks, Nate Taylor. They are well polished young individuals and probably some of the most interactive and engaging interviews that we have been a part of up to date in my career covering Cincinnati.
Very impressive 32 and 24 record for the Cincinnati Bearcats baseball team, 16 and 14 in Big 12 play. They're one of three teams in the Big 12 to post winning records in each of the past two seasons. And they had Big 12 Player of the Year, Carrington Cross. He's been fantastic. So they are trying to gun for the College World Series. I don't even really know how it works, Neil. I don't follow baseball at all.
I
It's
can break
not
it
really
down
on
for you
my
if you want.
radar. Do they play three games
It's a
in the
64
regional? How does it work for the
It's a
people?
64 field team, so you have 16 different regionals. Now, Cincinnati's opponents are playing in the Knoxville regional, like I mentioned. So the number one overall seed in that regional is Tennessee. They were the 14th overall seed in all of college baseball. So each one of the top 16 teams host a regional, which I
And they
believe, if
what? They
I
take two teams move on from the regional to the next round.
one team, one
Only
team.
one.
It's
So
double
you got to go
elimination
3-0
style.
essentially, or at least 2-1 to get out of this bracket.
Essentially, yes. It's double elimination bracket. So if you lose your first game, there's still hope that you can make it out of the regional, but it's not going to be an easy route. You look down at this schedule, Russ, they have the first two games on Friday. They'll have two games on Saturday, two games on Sunday, and they will play Monday if need be. If one of those teams that fall in the opening days kind of makes their way back into this thing and each team ends up with the same record, they will be playing on Monday as well to kind of see who moves on to the big dance there. So it's a very unique play style, and something I love too about it, Russ, is it's double elimination in the first round, right? It's not like it's a series to kick it off. So per se, it's easy to say, okay, say Cincinnati goes into Wake Forest and they lose two or three, they lose the first one, they don't have to go right back versus another juggernaut ACC school. They get an opportunity to play a Miami of Ohio or a Tennessee, something kind of different. So it's a unique style, but the winner of the Clemson regional and the winner of the Knoxville regional will then face off in a super regional, which then turns into a best of three series.
Gotcha. All right. College World Series. It's completely off my radar. Could follow Neil for the I don't think we will not be covering, I don't think,
I mean,
at
it's
Cincinnati
two.
Bearcats on his side, but definitely check out Neil and all his coverage. And Neil will have the reins next week. I'm sure he'll be talking about it when I am in Alaska for my big boosted super honeymoon next week. Cannot wait for that. And Neil will have the reins of the show all to himself on that front. We'll take a quick break and get to the football and basketball side of things on this Bearcat Blitz. Bearcat Blitz continues here on the Believe Network, where Neil, they're starting to flow in. Shanabayev in Cincinnati, ready for his freshman year. I am so excited for basketball. Going to be another hope-filled season for sure. We'll see if they can make that hope turn into wins this time around in the dog days of January. We'll find out very much about Shanabayev over the next few months, and Jalen Haynes. He is in town already. I'm sure everybody that has already locked in themselves with Cincinnati for this season and beyond is in town, ready to start up June and summer workouts. Which, Neil, I don't get why the summer workouts are so limited for the players this time of year. You have like way more access to practice time during the season when you're playing two games a week, and especially in what UC had to experience in the conference tournaments, the conference slate, where they had to play two games every week, no off weeks. You have way more practice time then, but then you get it restricted during the summer when you don't have any games to worry about. You can be, you're going to have less taxing times on the body in the summer, but they don't have as much access to coaching and practice in the summer. So I imagine that'll change eventually once we start working through some more of these NIL issues and down the line the rest of this decade. But the Bearcats basketball team flowing into Clifton and ready to start building that chemistry, the much needed chemistry with Neil, a roster that is the most overhauled it's been of the Wes Miller era. Important to get these guys here as soon as possible. And at least if they're not on the floor with defined coaching hours, coaching reps, they're at least getting out there together on their own and building the chemistry that way.
Yeah, and it's a great talking point too, Russ, because I know it's a big point of discussion when these summer workouts really hit. But I think part of it, why the limited hours is, they're technically, some of them might be in classes, some of them may not be enrolled in classes until the
It's true.
fall. So that could be a turn point into that in case something happens. You never know what could go behind the scenes, whether there's something, an academic related issue with them enrolling in classes, coming so late. You never know. There could be so many different situations that if they were to go full go in this kind of time frame and an injury happened and then one of those issues behind the scenes also happened, it could be kind of that maybe a potential liability aspect and things. But overall, I think that's a huge thing. I would love to see them be on the floor and gel more, especially right now during the summer, while Wes Miller in Cincinnati is in a situation where it is a complete roster rebuild, like you mentioned. But it's also worth noting, too, that the reason they are not doing it right now is they still have all their current guys from the 2024-25 season still in town, like Dan Skillings, Josh Reed still working out in Cincinnati that I know of. There's still a couple of those guys that are still in town working out that are now going to be playing at different phases of their careers different universities.
Yeah, I
So
wonder, are they still using the facilities? There's no, I mean,
yeah, so
the
technically
semester's over at this point, so
technically they still have access to the facilities
interesting.
as of right now, but especially I believe it's until their lease is up,
Hmm,
if I remember right, because student housing and all that kind of good stuff behind the
makes
scenes.
sense.
I know I was actually talking to Josh Reed a couple weeks ago off the record. He's actually staying in town until the end of this month, so he's getting ready to kind of gear up. He was working out a lot back home in Atlanta and back here on campus. So overall, it's going to be interesting to kind of see how that really plays out in the future. But man, Russ, I'm excited for basketball season. I'm so excited. It's just right around the corner, but until then, we're going to be focusing a lot on baseball and football until then.
Yeah, football taking center stage here right now as we get to our three most important players in each phase of the game. I'll go ahead and start. We'll start with the forgotten phase, special teams. For me, the most important player in the position that underratedly kind of swung the season in the negative direction on that 5 game losing streak is Max Fletcher at punter. His brother was a shell of himself down the stretch last season, couldn't even hit 40 plus yards on average in the final 5 weeks of the season, I don't believe. In goes Max Fletcher, who has an absolute cannon of a leg. All SEC second team punter from 2023, redshirted last year, obviously, had 23 punts of 50 plus yards, 19 of those downed inside the 20-yard line. The first punter at Arkansas to get SEC recognition, all SEC recognition, since Dylan Breeding in 2012, excuse me. And he tallied 59 punts with 2,770 yards to lead the entire Southeast Conference. Neil, this should be a weapon for Cincinnati in the punting game, and I think a clear step up from Mason Fletcher in 2024 version. Mason Fletcher in 2023, electric, great player. I believe he was an All American that year, and at least near the list, near the top of that list. And now you get a player I think that will be performing at a similar level to what his brother did in 2023. Max Fletcher to me is the most important player on the special teams because if he can continue, if he can flip the fields like Mason Fletcher did in the first half of the Bearcats 2024 season, then we all saw how that played into wins for them, especially in those tight game scenarios. It's so important to be able to flip that field and own field position in a league as tight as the Big 12.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. And I think that's a huge talking point because I'm not sure if you had seen the video. I was just trying to find it before you brought it up, but the video that Max Fletcher posted on Twitter the other the other week of him giving like the aerial view of one of his punts, and man, it was a beautiful punt. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned, flipping the field is going to be huge for Cincinnati. Special teams costed Cincinnati a potential bowl game. Let's keep it plain and simple. There was a couple games they lost due to special teams.
Yeah,
But
the kicking, just all around special teams. It was
yeah,
horrible
it
last
was
year,
all
just bad.
around. But that's where I think this is going to be the most important phase of the season. Max Fletcher coming in. I mean, he was an all SEC caliber punter in 2023 at Arkansas before redshirting here with his brother. But on top of it, I'm going to go with Steven Rusnak too, because Russ, you and I have seen it throughout spring practice. He has the leg to make 45, 50-yard kicks consistently. But the thing I like about Steven Rusnak is he has that swag to him. We haven't seen that with a kicker who's kind of
Yeah, he
had that
definitely has a
swag.
confidence. You can see it
He
for
has the
sure.
confidence, and I think that is going to be something that could play into Cincinnati's favor, especially when you kind of get to watch him in practice. He kind of is walking around like, yeah, let me kick this thing. Let me kick this thing. It's 45. Coach, let me kick it. That's what you want from your kicker, and he's got the leg. I mean, we've seen the track record at Charlotte. Didn't miss a field goal, didn't miss an extra point a season ago. I think those are going to be your two most important players for special teams this year for Cincinnati.
Flipping the defense, the obvious answer here is Dante Corleone. But to me, the outside and how Cincinnati's continued improvement from last season to this season compared to 2023 to 24 is that catalyzed by Matthew McDoom. Can he continue to help this secondary keep putting up good results? They were much better last year compared to 2023, but they lose their top cornerback from that jump and from that rise in Jordan Young, who was bad in 23, much better to, I would say, one of the better cornerbacks, outside cornerbacks in the Big 12 last year. And now Matthew McDoom needs to take that baton and for Bearcats fans, hopefully raise it to an even higher level after being an all Sun Belt corner in 2024. Love to see him be an all Big 12 corner in 2025. At 36 tackles, 3 picks, and 10 pass breakups last season, that tallied up to an 84.5 PFF grade on 547 snaps. He only gave up 1 touchdown in coverage. And now he comes to Cincinnati for his final year of eligibility with plenty of opportunity at the forefront for him and a chance to show the NFL that he's a player that deserves to be in those ranks. I think it's going to be a huge, huge fulcrum season for Matthew McDoom. A ton of experience at 5'11", 170 pounds, 1,269 career snaps of corner experience. Almost, I mean, I think around 1,000 to 1,000 plus of those are on the outside. So should have no major learning curve there, like Jordan Young had to go through in his 2023 season. That was really rough. And I think because of that, should be one of, if not the most important defenders on this defense because of what his ceiling could bring to this defense. If he shuts down one side of the field, it makes those pass rush questions that are surrounding Cincinnati a lot easier to answer, and it makes the interior pass rush from a guy like Dante Corleone, the definitively best defender on this roster, much more impactful. So I think Matthew McDoom is a guy that could unlock the ceilings for a lot of players on this defense. What do you got, Neil, for your most important defender?
Yeah, and it's everybody knows the correct answer here, Russ, is Dante Corleone. I think
Yeah, take
everybody
it if
knows
you want
that.
it.
But
I figured you might take Dante, but it is the
the
easy,
biggest
obvious one.
the biggest thing for me, you're going to touch on the secondary. Dante Corleone is the most impactful player on this defense, but the thing I'm thinking could be the most impactful for Cincinnati, and it might be something that's kind of off the rails here, Russ, but the defensive end position. Michael Coleman comes back. You get Jalen White McLean. You do some big time damage in the transfer portal. You bring in a guy, Marquez Parker's now had a great offseason. I mean, we saw the video of him deadlifting close to 600 pounds. I'm expecting a big year from those defensive end positions to kind of free things up for Dante Corleone to where he's not getting double and triple teamed just about every play. Teams are still going to do that, but Michael Coleman was slated to play a big time role for Cincinnati last year before the Achilles injury.
And was
And
able to get a full spring in, which is
now that
huge.
he is able to get it, well, he had a full spring in last year until he went down in beginning of summer workouts.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. It's just like that to tear an Achilles in the summer and be back in the spring is impressive. Very
Yeah.
impressive.
And that's the biggest thing. I think that could unlock the Cincinnati defense. Cincinnati lacked getting pressure to the quarterback last season. You had Jared Bartlett, you had Dante Corleone, and you had a couple pressures every now and then from the other guys. But having a guy like Michael Coleman on the outside at 6'5", 260 pounds, with his twitch, his athleticism, his versatility, I really think that could free up Dante Corleone to take another jump in his game to really wreak havoc in the Big 12. And I think that is what Cincinnati has missed in years past because we saw what Dante was able to do when he was getting some kind of help from the defensive end position, whether that was a guy like Juwan Briggs a few years ago, Ivan Pace, Deshaun Pace, whoever it might have been that they were able to kind of bring off the edge. Now, with that versatility, able to be back in the fold, a healthy defensive end room, I'm excited for Dante Corleone. I know last season he was I believe, a second team Big 12 defensive team, but there is no reason that Dante Corleone shouldn't be hearing his name called or name in conversations for Defensive Player of the Year within the Big 12 due to the players surrounding him at that defensive end position. I'm really excited for what Dante Corleone will be able to do this year.
21 sacks last season, less than 2 per game from the Cincinnati Bearcats defense. That ranked 92nd nationally, and that ranking has to improve if Cincinnati wants to hit its ceiling in 2024. The edge rushers, a huge, huge factor in that, and the influx of edge rusher talent going to be a huge factor in that. Offensively, closing out the show with Joe Royer as my non-quarterback most important player on the offense. I think you could pick one of the offensive linemen here. I think you very well could do that. I was teetering between Royer and Gavin Gerhardt. I just think the security blanket that Royer is, the leap I could see him taking in his route running, in his athleticism this coming season, coming off of a fully healthy 12-month stretch already ingrained in this UC system. already set the single season catch record last year, and I think is a guy that could be an All-American at the big and at the tight end position in 2025. It's very possible for Joe Royer. And just the fact that I pick Royer because of the security blanket aspect, the knowing from Brendan Sorsby that despite all this change at the wide receiver position, I know I can go to Joe Royer when it counts most. I know he's going to be able to get open when I need to get that 5, 6, 7 yard third down checked off the board. The security blanket aspect of Joe Royer, I think, is going to be massive for this offense. It's going to help keep the chains moving a lot. It's going to help keep Cincinnati on time. Plenty of options, though, Neil. Who'd you pick for your most important non-quarterback on the offense?
Yeah, just like you mentioned, it was very kind of an easy decision for Joe Royer to be in that conversation. Because, I mean, Russ, you and I have talked about it multiple times on this podcast, off the record, whenever we see each other. Joe Royer has the potential to be tight end one in this class behind Max Clare of Ohio State. Everybody knows, I think those are arguably your top two tight ends in all of college football. But not only does Joe Royer benefit from having another year with Brendan Sorsby, he has the beneficial aspect of coming back and seeing what this team is being built on. Yes, he led the team in receptions last season, broke the tight end single season record. He is expected to play a huge role for Cincinnati. But the biggest thing I'm looking forward to is the offensive line. How do you protect Brendan Sorsby? Not only just one position, but a revamped offensive line. You have to find a way to keep him standing in the pocket and able to find guys like Jeff Caldwell, Joe Royer, and whatnot there on the outside. That's where I'm most looking forward to as the most impactful there is how does this offensive line in
Who are you
2025.
picking? You pick, is there who's
I'm
the
thinking
name?
Joe Cotton. If I'm picking anybody, you obviously have Gavin Gerhardt, but Joe Cotton is such a massive addition that this could be arguably the best Cincinnati offensive line since probably the 2021 Peach Bowl, maybe the Cotton Bowl year. It's going to be a great time, but it starts up front in the trenches. If Cincinnati wants to be successful on offense, it has to start there with the offensive line. And right there, there's so many unknowns with the offensive line, especially coming out of spring ball. Who could be those guys that fill in for the 3 or 4 that they lost this season ago? That's where the big time question mark for me is. And I think the most impactful for position will be the offensive line, especially if Cincinnati wants to open up the pass game along with the run game. It starts in the trenches for me.
Picking Joe Cotton. I was going to go with Gavin Gerhardt just behind Joe Royer, just as a guy that is going to have to get everybody on the same page and be the heartbeat, the consistent heartbeat of a brand new look offensive line this coming fall. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Eltman. Been a fun Bearcat Blitz. Talk to you again later on this week. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday and beyond, everybody.